Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today I've got a review of a pretty cool knife that I've been following with some interest for a while. This is the We Knives Roxi 4. Now, there's been a couple of versions of this knife. There's a Roxi 2, which is smaller. Perhaps, this has roughly a 4-inch blade. Maybe the Roxi 2 has a 2-inch blade, and that's where the number comes from. I'm not sure about that. Both of them are designs that originate with Todd Knife and Tool. And if you follow the Zelric42 YouTube channel, you'll probably be very familiar. Zell over there wears a number of hats. Not only does he have that YouTube channel, but he also serves as the US rep for We Knives and has a company that he runs along with his brother called Todd Knife and Tool, and they do custom knives. This, of course, is one of their designs that is done in collaboration with We. They've got a couple of collaborations out there. I believe they've done a couple of knives with Best Tech. Yeah, the one, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's right on the tip of my tongue. I'm sure I'll think of it as I work our way through the review. But for now, let's think about the Roxi 4 and point out that I do like this design quite a bit. It's weird with the knives that Todd Knife and Tool puts out. I feel like I either love them or hate them, and perhaps that's just the way it goes with a distinctive design. This one I like an awful lot, but some of the ones I've seen, the Malware is the other Best Tech collab, sorry, and the Shodan. I don't know why I couldn't think of those a second ago. The Shodan, again, I like it a lot. I really, really like that design, where the Malware, it just doesn't do it for me. So who knows what accounts for that? It's just, personal preference, whatever. But this one I like quite a bit. Now, this is big, and that's part of the reason I like it. 9 inches overall, 3 15/16 on the blade, okay? So that's almost 4 inches. Just a hair over 5 inches on the handle. So if you measure this handle, you'll get just a little bit of a touch over 5 inches. 3.5-inch grip area. Now the grip area is something we'll come back to when we get to ergonomics, but I measured it from here to there. As you can see, there's also the choil and there's a little bit at the back here. So if you had really big hands, there'd be a resting spot for your pinky back here. My hand fits pretty nicely on this flat portion without any difficulty. And then, of course, as I mentioned, you still have that choil. So, 3.5 inches seems kind of small for a 4-inch knife. There are lots of other sort of variations that you could take in terms of grip. Now, this guy is not super heavy for a knife of its size. At 9 inches, this weighs in at 4.9 ounces. All right. And that is with no, you can take a look in there, no internal milling. And let's see, should have brought a flashlight, but that's okay. Okay, so now that you got the size and weight, let's kind of work our way through this knife, and I'll just talk about the different features, things I like, dislike, whatever the case may be. Starting off with this very, very cool Wharncliffe blade. I like this blade a lot. Not all Wharncliffes appeal to me, but this one definitely does. We've got a nice stonewash finish here, really good edge geometry, very high flat grind, a bit of a top swedge here. On the Roxi 2, all you have is this fuller and it extends all the way back. Here they've added an opening hole, which is actually really, really nice. I like that a lot. It does allow you to open the knife slowly if you want to, but also to spidey flick it. Those things are important to me, maybe not to everyone, but I like that. They've also given you a bit of a landing strip here for your thumb, and I like that as well. Now, I could have had it extended just a little bit more, but this is pretty good, okay? So I like the way that they've added a couple little features here to this blade that make it a little more ergonomic and a little more useful. There's there are two little nitpicks I have, and I've got to say these are truly nitpicks because they're not that big of a deal at all. There is you won't be able to see it on camera. I'm not going to get a ruler out for you, but if you had a straight edge here, there's a very, very slight hint of a recurve down here at the base. And I actually think one thing could have easily fixed that. Had they changed the way they did this plunge grind so that it kind of came back and followed the handle, it would move this lump of metal out of the way and allow you to just start here with sharpening and continue along. So it would have been nice to make this sort of a sharpening choil as well as the plunge grind, and it would have alleviated the potential for creating that little recurve. So that's the only real hiccup that I have with the blade. Otherwise, and as I say, it's not even a huge hiccup. It's just one slight preference that I would like to see done a little bit differently. So overall, oh, by the way, the blade steel on this guy is going to be S35VN. So do I like this blade? Yeah, I like it a whole lot. I really, I like Wharncliffe blades. I wouldn't want all my knives to have Wharncliffe blades, but a good one is really, really enjoyable, and this is a good one. Moving over to lockup and deployment, this is a Wee knife, guys. So guess what? Lockup and deployment is pretty stinking fantastic. It's got ceramic bearings and detent, very easily accessible lock bar, fantastic detent, and notice the small flipper tab. Now, I get nervous when I see a flipper tab like this because I start to worry that I'm not going to be able to get my finger on here. Okay, I start to think like, oh, is it going to be uncomfortable? This is really, really nice. It doesn't get uncomfortable, and I've sat, watching TV or whatever and flicked this over and over again. And guess what? It works really, really well. The other thing I have to say is the detent here is super, super dialed in. So it works. And this is something we've seen so many times, guys. A knife, hold on, I gotta move there we go. A knife gets the detent right for the flipper tab, but not for the Spidey flick, or vice versa. The detent is set really well to Spidey flick the knife, or even thumb open the knife, but not well for the flipper tab. Not so with this. It's really, really done well so that every possible opening mechanism works very well, and it's always a nice, satisfying, fast, clicky deployment, and just really, really good. So I've got to give a lot of credit to Wee Knives for getting that really well dialed in. The other thing I've got to say is this knife is comfortable overall. So everything you try to do, and this for me is a real thing. So a knife that just isn't comfortable, or I'm always struggling, I'm not going to end up keeping it for a long time. And this, everything is comfortable. Everything works just the way you want it to. And I enjoy that an awful lot. Obviously, we have Torx construction here. So if you need to adjust that detent, or adjust that pivot tension, you can do that pretty easily. And of course, having bearings in there means you may at some point need to take this knife apart and clean things up in there. Not always, sometimes a little bit of KPL and some forced air will do the job for you, but just to know that option exists is worthwhile. Let's see, one other big thing that I wanted to point out here. I've got to tell you, and maybe I'm just, out of the loop, that's totally possible, but look how they've done the lock bar insert here. This is one of the greatest things. Hold on, if I got a flashlight, yeah. Kind of forgot this flashlight was in my pockets, but there you go. So take a look in there and see how they've done that lock bar insert. So it actually comes up past at the top rather than at the back. So the back here is clean. Let's see if I can find you an example of the other way of doing this. Yeah, so if you look in the torrent here, you can see that little tab of steel comes behind to serve as an over travel stop. All right, here, instead of going behind, right, there's nothing coming back in here. They've gone up. So there's a little kind of milled pocket in here, and that's where the over travel stop sits when you unlock the knife. So really, really well done. Zell, if that was your idea, that's fantastic. And as I said, maybe I'm just not thinking clearly, but I don't know of any other frame locks that use that same method. Curtis Knives does something sort of similar by using an oversized pivot, but this is really, really nice, and I like the way that they have achieved getting that over travel stop to function there. Really, really thoughtful and well done. Let's see. I guess at this point you can pretty well tell that I like the lockup deployment and the action on this knife overall a whole lot. It's fast, it's snappy, it's smooth, it's everything you want to see from a folder. Let's see here. Let's move on to the handle itself. So we've got titanium frame lock here. There is a flame anodized version of this, and I like flame anodized knives, but they just make me nervous. Okay, I've had a couple before, and I always feel like I'm going to ruin that anodizing. To me, it shows wear really easily, and it doesn't show it very well. So the wear on a flame anodized knife just makes it look bad. Okay, where other knives, you've got sort of a bead blast finish on here, a little bit of snail trailing and stuff is not going to ruin it, where I feel when I have a flame anodized knife I have to worry about it all the time. So Not the flame anodized version, and I'm happy with that. Bronze ano here on the clip and on the screws and on the pivot, which looks really, really nice. Backspacer as well. We've sort of got this, industrial modern kind of design here, and it does look very, very attractive. And here's the point I want to stop here for just a second and make a point about this overall design. This is a design where I could really see, We Knives or the designer just going off the deep end and making all kinds of, lines and pictures and squares and cutouts all over the place. And that gets overly distracting really quickly, at least to me, right? Maybe you'd like something like that, but for me, this has just enough detail. We've got some nice little step downs here, some colorful screws, just a little bit of detail to add some visual interest, and then that's enough. All right. If this knife had a whole lot more, I think it starts to get gaudy and overly complex and just not as attractive. And even on the lock side, where it's much easier to do that because you've got a lock and a cutout and a clip, it's still really controlled, and they just haven't gone overboard with making things overly complex and detailed. It's really, really well balanced. So I've got to give them that in terms of design points. Now, last thing, let's talk a little bit about ergonomics. And very quickly, I'll just say, this is not a knife that, molds into your hand or anything like that, but it's not at all uncomfortable. They've been thoughtful to give me a spot for my thumb to go here, some jimping that's highly effective there. Overall, I like the feel of this knife in hand quite a lot. It's not uncomfortable. It's not there's nothing that stands out as a hot spot to me. And whether you're holding it to cut stuff or whether you're flipping it or whatever you're doing, it just feels good. So I've got to give some credit there as well for a fairly simple handle, and one that's as square as this. It can kind of be like, oh, what's this going to feel like in hand? But it feels quite good. So they definitely did a good job with ergonomics. Let me grab a couple of comparisons. I don't have a ton of comparisons here. The one that I'll bring in, the one that I mostly bring in first is going to be the Para 2. And so we're not doing anything different there. Just to give you an idea of the size of this knife, it is pretty big, right? 3/4 of an inch more than the Para 2. Let's grab another WE knife before I get to the other two comparisons that I have. So here is the WE Knives Arrakis. Very, very different, okay? But both of these are highly stylized knives. The difference is the Roxi maintains a high degree of functionality, where the Arrakis makes some more compromises to reach a form that they're going for and gives up a certain amount of function. A couple of other knives. Here is one of my favorite knives. This is the Riot Knives Torrent. Just a fantastic knife. And I will say that WE is doing a great job. They always do a good job with action, lockup, deployment, all of that stuff. I still feel like the Torrent is just a hair more refined, but not too much. Lastly, when it comes to titanium frame locks, you always want to throw in a Chris Reeve knife in there. So here is the Chris Reeve Inkosi with black micarta, my favorite version of the Inkosi, and I'm enjoying this knife a whole lot. But, for size and price and all that kind of stuff, I thought I would throw this in here. All right. There you go, guys. Those are the comparisons I have for you. Let's wrap this thing up. So, what are my thoughts on the WE Knives Todd Knife and Tool Roxi 4? I think this is a really nice offering. Look, it's well built, it's functional, and it's different. It offers you the ability to carry something that's kind of cool, that's kind of interesting, that has this certain style to it. But to get that style and to get that look that is really attractive, I find, you're not compromising utility. You're not compromising function. And so they've done a really nice job. It feels good in hand. It cuts well. It flips well. All the things that a knife is supposed to do, it just does them. So there you go, guys. Those are my thoughts on the WE Knives Roxi 4. I think this is a win. And for me, at least at this point, now I know time's passing, and I also know of the recently released Shodan. But to me, this is the best thing from Todd Knife and Tool up to this point. Perhaps something will come out that strikes my fancy to a greater degree in the near future. But for now, I've got to say this is pretty impressive. Thanks a lot for watching. If you want to pick one of these up, go over to to White Mountain Knives, use my discount code SHARPSTUFF. You'll save yourself 10%. And oh yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to, turn on notifications as well, because YouTube does this thing now where if you subscribe, that doesn't mean anything. I know that's weird, but that's the world we're in. Okay, thanks guys. We'll talk to you soon.